millionaire in a wheelchair, sat alone at the wedding, until a single mum asked, "Will you be my date?" Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The music of a wedding reception floated through the air like golden threads. Laughter rippled across the ballroom, champagne glasses clinked, and the chandeliers sparkled above the crowd. Every table was filled with chatter, with friends leaning close, lovers stealing glances, and families celebrating the bride and groom. But at the far edge of the hall, tucked against a column where the light did not fully reach, a man sat alone in a wheelchair. His name was Liam Parker. His suit was perfectly tailored, his hair neatly combed, his jawline still sharp, but his eyes carried a quiet distance. Where others danced or raised their glasses, he remained still, his hands folded on his lap. To most of the guests, he was invisible, a shadow in the corner. The smile that crossed his face when people walked past was practiced, polite, but his gaze kept drifting to the dance floor. The music swelled as couples twirled beneath the chandeliers. Once, not long ago, Liam would have been among them. Once, he would have led with confidence, his steps sure, his presence commanding. But that was before the accident, before the fracture of bone and fate that left him bound to wheels instead of feet. Tonight, surrounded by laughter and light, the loneliness pressed harder. His glass of sparkling water sat untouched beside him. The speeches had finished, the cake had been cut, and still he remained apart, his heart echoing with the quiet truth. Wealth could buy a seat at any table, but not a partner to share it with. Across the room, Emma Brooks tightened the ribbon on her daughter's braid and guided the little girl toward the dessert table. Emma's dress was simple, borrowed from a cousin, her shoes a size too small. She was here only because the bride was her childhood friend, and she had almost refused the invitation, worried she would not belong. But her daughter, Lily, had insisted. "Please, Mommy, I want to see the dancing lights." Emma smiled at her child now, trying to keep her own worries hidden. Bills were stacked at home, the rent was late, and her job as a waitress barely covered the basics. Yet for this one night, she wanted Lily to feel like they belonged among the joy. As Emma lifted her eyes from the dessert table, she noticed him, the man in the wheelchair, alone, while laughter spilled all around him. Something in his stillness struck her. Not pity exactly, but recognition. She knew what it felt like to stand on the edges, to feel unseen in a room full of people. For a long moment, she hesitated. Approaching a stranger was not like her. Her life was built on routines, on staying quiet, on surviving one day at a time. But something about the way his hand rested on the armrest, still but strong, stirred a question inside her. Was it possible that he was waiting for someone, anyone, to see him? Her daughter tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, why is that man sitting all alone?" The innocent whisper cut through Emma's hesitation like a bell. She glanced back at the little girl, then at the man, and felt her heartbeat rise. She took a slow breath, straightened her shoulders, and stepped forward. The hum of conversation seemed to fade as she crossed the room. Every footstep sounded louder against the polished floor. She could hear her own pulse in her ears, the music swelling as if pushing her toward a choice she did not fully understand. When she reached him, his eyes lifted to meet hers. They were gray, steady, guarded, but there was a flicker beneath the surface. Surprise, curiosity, a fragile hope. Emma's voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but her words carried a courage she had not known she possessed. "Hi," she said softly. Would you be my date for the evening?" For a second, silence hung between them. Then the faintest smile broke across his face, as if the world had given him back something he thought was gone forever. Emma's words lingered in the air, simple yet daring. "Would you be my date for the evening?" Liam blinked, startled by the question. For a moment his polished smile faltered, replaced by genuine surprise. He had expected another polite nod, another guest who looked past him. But here was a woman, a stranger in a borrowed dress, standing in front of him with courage trembling in her voice. He could have refused. He could have offered a courteous excuse. Instead, he heard himself say softly, "All right." Emma exhaled, relief flickering in her chest. She pulled out a chair and sat beside him, her daughter skipping happily back toward the dance floor with a cupcake in hand. For the first time that night, Liam was not alone. They exchanged the kind of hesitant smiles that belong to strangers searching for safe ground. Emma smoothed the skirt of her dress and glanced at the untouched glass of water on the table. "Do you not drink champagne?" she asked, trying to bridge the silence. "Not tonight," Liam answered. His tone was gentle but carried a weight she could not place. Emma nodded and looked away, her fingers twisting together nervously. She had not planned for this. She had not planned to walk across the ballroom and sit with a man whose presence seemed at once commanding and fragile. Yet here she was, her heart racing faster than the music. Outside of the glittering hall, reality was much harsher. Emma's life had been a string of double shifts and overdue bills. She rented a one-bedroom apartment with walls so thin she could hear the neighbor's television at night. Her shoes were worn, her paycheck always late, and yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. She thought of the sketchbook tucked inside her purse at that very moment. It was filled with drawings made during snatched breaks at the diner, lines of charcoal and pencil shaping the dream she had carried since childhood. One day, she would open a small studio. She wanted to teach children how to draw, how to find color and hope, even when life felt gray. But dreams cost money, and money was the one thing she never had enough of. Liam studied her carefully, noticing the way her eyes darted toward the dance floor, then back down to her lap. She spoke with an honesty he was not used to. Most women at these events wore diamonds and carried themselves with rehearsed charm. Emma's words came rushed, unpolished, but they carried warmth. "I am a waitress," she admitted, as though confessing a secret. "It is not glamorous, but it keeps us going. I pick up extra shifts whenever I can. My daughter deserves more than what I can give, but I am trying." Liam tilted his head, curiosity rising. "And what about you? What do you want?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in years. She hesitated, then pressed her lips together before whispering, "I want to paint. I want to fill canvases with the things I see in my head before they disappear. I want to open a small studio one day. But for now, I just want to keep a roof over our heads." She gave a small laugh, self-conscious. "I guess dreams can wait." The laughter was thin, fragile, but Liam heard the truth beneath it. Something stirred inside him. Her words were not meant to impress, yet they did. She was not pretending. She was not calculating. She was simply honest. Emma quickly changed the subject, asking him about his work. Liam paused for half a heartbeat, then offered a vague reply. "I work in technology," he said, his tone casual. "Technology?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Like coding and apps? I am terrible with computers. My daughter probably knows more than I do." Liam allowed a faint smile. "Something like that." For a moment, the noise of the ballroom seemed to fade. Emma leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her nervous energy softening into genuine curiosity. She spoke about her shifts at the diner, about the regulars who tipped in crumpled bills, about the nights she returned home too exhausted to do more than sketch a few lines before sleep claimed her. Liam found himself listening intently, more captivated than he had been by any boardroom speech or gala toast. And as Emma spoke, the outline of her struggle became clear. The single mother balancing survival and hope, her sketchbook a fragile seed of a dream. Liam felt the weight of his own loneliness shift. Her presence was a reminder of something he had forgotten, that sincerity could cut through silence, that connection could exist without pretense. For the first time in a long time, Liam Parker felt seen. And Emma, though she could not yet explain why, felt the stirrings of possibility in the quiet company of a man she thought she had just met by chance. The night stretched on, but Emma found herself losing track of time. The music swelled, guests raised their glasses. Yet she and Liam remained at the edge of the ballroom, their quiet conversation unfolding like a hidden thread. For once, Emma did not feel like an outsider. She felt noticed. Still, doubt lingered in her chest. She caught herself studying the sharp lines of Liam's suit, the discreet cufflinks at his wrists, the polished way he carried himself even seated in the wheelchair. He looked nothing like the men she usually encountered, and she could not shake the thought that she did not belong at his side. When the band struck up a new song and couples spilled onto the floor, Liam glanced toward the movement, then back at Emma. "Do you want to dance?" His voice was even, but there was something vulnerable beneath it. Emma blinked. "Dance?" Her eyes darted to his wheelchair. "But how?" Liam's lips curved into a faint smile. "Not the way you are thinking. But there are other kinds of dances. Conversation, for example." His tone was playful, almost teasing, and for the first time Emma laughed freely, the tension easing from her shoulders. The laughter faded into silence, and she reached for her purse almost without thinking. Fingers brushing the worn leather cover, she hesitated, then pulled out her sketchbook. The edges were frayed, pages smudged with graphite. It was her most precious possession, the one thing she always carried with her. "I do not usually show this to anyone," she admitted, voice low. "But you asked what I want. This is it." She opened to a page filled with rough but beautiful lines, a sketch of her daughter asleep, curls spilling across the pillow. Another page revealed the outline of the diner where she worked, transformed by her hand into something brighter, almost magical. Liam leaned closer, his gaze fixed not only on the drawings but on the light in Emma's eyes as she explained each one. "You see?" she said, tapping a charcoal stroke. "I draw the world not how it is, but how I wish it could be. Because sometimes, hope is the only thing that keeps me going." Her honesty struck him like a chord. He had sat through countless business proposals, listened to polished pitches and rehearsed speeches. Yet none of those voices had ever carried the raw conviction Emma's did in that moment. Before Liam could respond, Emma's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and froze. A message from her friend Jenny lit up the display. "Emma, where are you?" "Table 7. Kevin is waiting for you." Her breath caught in her throat. The color drained from her cheeks as realization slammed into her. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to Liam, guilt flooding her expression. "You are not Kevin, are you?" The words tumbled out, barely a whisper. Liam hesitated. His jaw tightened, then he shook his head. "No, I am not." The ground seemed to tilt beneath her. "Oh my God," Emma muttered, scrambling to close her sketchbook. "I am so sorry. I must have sat at the wrong table." She rose so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. Her pulse hammered in her ears, humiliation burning hotter than the chandelier lights overhead. "I should go. I should not have—" "Emma, wait," Liam said, his hand lifting slightly from the armrest. But she was already turning away, clutching her purse to her chest, as if it could shield her from the embarrassment. She hurried across the ballroom, weaving through the crowd until the doors swung shut behind her. The cold night air struck her face, sharp and punishing. Her chest ached with a mixture of regret and shame. Inside, Liam remained where she had left him, her laughter still echoing faintly in his memory. He had intended to correct her from the very start. He had meant to tell her the truth, to explain. Yet when she smiled at him with such sincerity, when she shared her sketches as if they were pieces of her soul, he had chosen silence. Now she was gone, and Liam Parker, the man who could command an empire with a single decision, found himself powerless against the simple fear that he might never see Emma Brooks again. The city skyline shimmered outside Liam Parker's penthouse windows, each light a reminder of the world he commanded and the distance he felt from it. He sat alone that night, the hum of traffic below faint against the silence that pressed in around him. Normally, the view calmed him. Tonight, it only deepened the ache. Emma's voice, her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she showed him her sketches, all of it replayed in his mind with relentless clarity. She had thought he was someone ordinary, and that had made her honest. And he had let her believe it. Across town, Emma sat curled on a worn couch in her small apartment. She pressed her sketchbook against her chest, her cheeks still hot with embarrassment. Her daughter Lily slept soundly in the bedroom, the rhythm of her soft breaths the only comfort Emma felt. She whispered to herself, "I cannot believe I did that. I sat at the wrong table, showed him my drawings, and poured out my dreams like a fool." She groaned, hiding her face in a pillow. But beneath the sting of humiliation was another feeling she could not shake, the memory of how he listened, really listened, in a way no one else had. The following morning, Liam sat in his office, half listening as his assistant reviewed his schedule. Claire, efficient as always, noticed his distraction. "You have been quiet since last night," she said. "Did something happen?" Liam hesitated before replying. "I met someone," he said simply. "Accidentally." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Accidentally?" "She thought I was someone else. We talked. She has no idea who I am, and for the first time in years, it felt real." Claire's expression softened. "So, what are you going to do?" Liam leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "I do not know, but I cannot stop thinking about her." Meanwhile, Emma tried to return to her routine. The diner buzzed with the clatter of plates and the hiss of the grill. She tied her apron and forced a smile as she refilled coffee cups, but her thoughts kept slipping back to the man at the wedding. She told herself it did not matter. She would never see him again. Her life was not a fairy tale. And men like him, men in tailored suits with steady eyes and calm smiles, did not belong in her world. Yet fate had other plans. 2 days later, as Emma carried a tray of steaming plates through the crowded diner, the bell above the door jingled. She glanced up and froze. Liam sat at the counter, his wheelchair positioned neatly against the chrome edge, his presence commanding even in the hum of the lunch rush. Her heart lurched. What was he doing here? Liam met her gaze, his expression unreadable but his eyes steady. For a moment, the diner noise faded, leaving only the thud of Emma's pulse. She forced herself to look away, to focus on the tray in her hands, but the weight of his presence followed her every step. When her shift ended, Emma stepped outside into the cool air, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. Liam was waiting by the curb, the afternoon sun glinting off the wheels of his chair. "You left in a hurry the other night," he said quietly. Emma shifted uneasily, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because I made a mistake. I thought you were someone else. I should not have—" "You should not have what?" Liam interrupted gently. "Talked to me? Shared your dreams?" "Emma, that was not a mistake. That was the most honest conversation I have had in years." She blinked at him, startled by the sincerity in his voice. "Why are you here?" "Because I want to see you again," Liam said. "Not as anyone else, just as me." Emma hesitated, torn between caution and the strange, unshakable pull she felt toward him. The city sounds swirled around them, car horns, footsteps, the chatter of strangers, but in that moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. And though she did not yet know who he really was, Emma realized she wanted to hear more. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding slowly. "All right," she whispered. "One more conversation." Liam's smile was small, but it carried the weight of something rare and real. For both of them, the story that began with a mistake was only just beginning to unfold. The weeks that followed unfolded with a rhythm Emma had not expected. What began as cautious conversations outside the diner soon turned into regular meetings. Sometimes they walked through the park with Lily skipping ahead of them. Sometimes they sat in the corner booth of the cafe near her apartment, where the smell of roasted beans clung to the air and the noise of the city softened into background hum. Liam never spoke much about his own life, and Emma did not press him. He listened. That alone felt rare. He asked about Lily's favorite books, about the way Emma first discovered she loved to draw, about the neighborhood where she grew up. In turn, Emma began to notice details about him, the way he paused before answering questions, the way his eyes seemed to search for something unseen, the way his laughter, when it came, was quiet but genuine. One Saturday, Liam asked to see her apartment. Emma hesitated, embarrassed by the peeling paint and the squeak of the hallway stairs, but something in his steady gaze convinced her. She opened the door, bracing for judgment, but he only wheeled himself inside with calm curiosity. The small living room was cluttered with toys and laundry, the couch threadbare, but the sketchbook and pencils on the coffee table spoke louder than the furniture. Emma apologized quickly. "It is not much, just home." Liam looked around slowly, then turned back to her. "It feels like a place filled with life," he said simply. Emma flushed, caught off guard. For so long she had seen her apartment as a symbol of what she lacked. Hearing him describe it as something alive made her chest ache in a new way. They spent the afternoon drawing together. Emma showed him how Lily liked to color outside the lines, how she herself blended shades of blue and gray to capture the evening sky. Liam's hands were steady but hesitant as he sketched a rough outline of the skyline through the window. Emma leaned closer, guiding his pencil. Their hands touched briefly, and the room grew quiet. She pulled back quickly, her face warm, but the moment lingered. At the cafe the following week, Emma noticed the stares. A group of well-dressed women at the next table whispered behind their manicured hands, their eyes darting to Liam's wheelchair, and then to her second-hand jacket. Emma stiffened, shame prickling her skin. She looked down at her coffee, wishing she could disappear. Liam noticed. He turned his chair slightly, placing himself between her and the whispering women. "Ignore them," he said firmly. "I cannot," Emma whispered. "They are right. You do not belong here with me." Liam's expression hardened. "Do you really think belonging is decided by people who judge from the corner of a cafe?" "Emma? I am here because I choose to be." "Oh." The conviction in his voice silenced her protest. For the first time, she realized how deeply his words carried weight, not just polite reassurance, but something stronger, something unshakable. Still, doubt gnawed at her. She knew the gap between them was wide. He carried himself with quiet elegance, even when he said nothing about his life. She was a waitress fighting late bills and clinging to sketches no one had ever seen. How could those two worlds fit together? One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Emma lingered at the window of her apartment. She thought of Liam's eyes when he looked at her sketches, not with pity, but with respect. She thought of the cafe, of the way he shielded her from the whispers, without a second thought. Her chest tightened with a mixture of hope and fear. For years she had told herself that dreams could wait, that love was something fragile people like her could not afford. But now, with every conversation, every shared silence, Liam was challenging that belief. What she did not know was that the same fear haunted him. Liam Parker, the man the world knew as untouchable, found himself questioning for the first time if honesty might cost him the one connection he could not bear to lose. And somewhere deep inside both of them, a truth was stirring, a truth that would not stay hidden forever. The night of the charity gala arrived with a grandeur that made Emma's stomach twist. Chandeliers spilled golden light across marble floors, the air rich with perfume and polite laughter. She smoothed the skirt of her simple dress, borrowed once again, and tried to ignore the knot in her chest. Liam had invited her personally, his voice steady but his eyes searching when he asked. "I would like you to come," he had said. "It would mean something to me." Emma had wanted to refuse. This was not her world. Yet here she was, stepping into a ballroom filled with crystal glasses and gowns that shimmered like constellations. Her daughter was safe with Jenny for the night, and Emma told herself she was here only to support a friend. But as she walked beside Liam, her nerves threatened to unravel. Liam looked composed, his suit perfectly tailored, his wheelchair gliding smoothly across the polished floor. Guests turned to greet him, their smiles practiced, their words dripping with reverence. Emma noticed the subtle shift in the air whenever his name was spoken. It was as though everyone in the room already knew him. She frowned, unease growing. When the speeches began, Emma sat at Liam's side, her hands folded tightly in her lap. A master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage, his voice echoing through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's guest of honor, a man whose vision and leadership have transformed the world of technology, Mr. Liam Parker." The applause thundered. Emma froze, the name slammed into her chest like a blow. She turned to look at Liam, but he was already moving toward the stage, the spotlight illuminating his calm expression. Her breath caught. Liam Parker. She had heard that name before, seen it printed on glossy magazine covers displayed behind the diner counter. The young billionaire, the genius who had built an empire before the age of 35. The man she thought was a quiet stranger in a wheelchair was, in fact, one of the most powerful figures in the city. Emma's vision blurred as the crowd rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, celebrating him. Her fingers clenched around the strap of her purse, humiliation burning hot across her skin. Every conversation they had shared replayed in her mind, every vague answer, every silence that now made sense. He had known exactly who he was. She had been the fool who did not. When Liam spoke, his voice carried authority. He thanked the donors, spoke of future projects, and acknowledged the importance of giving back. His words were polished, measured, the voice of a leader accustomed to commanding attention. But Emma heard something else beneath the smooth delivery, a fragility, a searching tone that reminded her of the man who had once asked if she dreamed of painting. She did not stay to hear the rest. Rising quietly, she slipped out through the side doors, her pulse racing. The cool night air hit her lungs as she stumbled onto the empty terrace. Her heart thudded painfully as realization clawed at her. She had trusted him. She had shown him her sketchbook, her dreams, her vulnerabilities. And all the while, he had hidden the truth. Behind her, the ballroom doors creaked open. She did not need to turn to know who it was. Liam's voice followed, low and urgent. "Emma, wait." She spun, eyes burning. "Why did you not tell me? Why let me think you were just some quiet man in a wheelchair? You lied to me." Liam's face tightened, guilt etched in every line. "I did not lie. I wanted someone to see me. Not the name, not the money. Just me." Emma shook her head, pain surging like a tide. "You could have told me the truth. You should have. Do you know how humiliating it is to stand in that room and realize I've been sitting beside a man everyone else already knew?" Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "You said you wanted honesty, and yet you were never honest with me." The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the muffled music from the ballroom. Liam opened his mouth to speak, but Emma stepped back, shaking her head. "I cannot do this," she whispered, "not with secrets." And with that, she turned, her footsteps fading into the night, leaving Liam alone on the terrace, with nothing but the bitter echo of truth unspoken. Emma's footsteps echoed across the quiet street as she left the gala behind. The glittering lights and polished laughter faded into the distance, replaced by the hollow rhythm of her own heart. She clutched her sketchbook to her chest, the same sketchbook she had once shown Liam with trembling hope. Now it felt like a cruel reminder of how completely she had misjudged him. Back in her apartment, Emma collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Lily was asleep in the next room, her soft breathing steady and calm, untouched by the storm raging in her mother's chest. Emma whispered into the silence, "How could I have been so blind?" Tears streaked her cheeks, hot and relentless. For years she had survived disappointment, broken promises, and lonely nights. She had promised herself she would never let anyone fool her again. And yet, somehow, she had let down her guard. Across the city, Liam sat alone in his office, the skyline glowing behind him. The applause from the gala still rang in his ears, but it felt hollow. His heart was heavy with the image of Emma's eyes, filled with hurt and betrayal. Claire, his assistant, knocked gently on the door, but he barely looked up. "She left," he said simply, his voice rough. "I wanted her to see me, not the billionaire, not the empire, just me. And now I have lost her." Claire's gaze softened. "Then what are you going to do about it?" Liam did not answer. He stared at the sketches Emma had left on the table of the cafe weeks ago, pages he had quietly asked her permission to keep. He traced the charcoal lines with his fingertips, the drawings alive with her spirit. For a man who could command markets and bend boardrooms to his will, Liam felt powerless. And yet, for the first time, he realized that love required something more than power. It required truth. Days passed. Emma threw herself into work at the diner, determined to bury the ache beneath endless shifts. But the whispers of the gala followed her. A group of customers pointed at the newspaper spread across the counter, where Liam Parker's face stared back, headlines praising his brilliance. Emma turned away quickly, her stomach twisting. Still, late at night, when the world was quiet, her mind betrayed her. She remembered the way he had shielded her from gossip at the cafe, the way he had listened as if her words mattered, the way he had looked at her sketches with something like reverence. Those memories clashed against the humiliation she felt, leaving her torn and restless. And deep down, Emma could not shake the suspicion that Liam's silence had not been cruelty but fear. Fear of being seen only for his wealth. Fear of losing the one person who had unknowingly treated him as a man instead of a name. Yet the wound of betrayal was still raw, and Emma was not ready to forgive. For now, she told herself, it was better to endure the loneliness she knew than to risk the heartbreak of believing in someone who had hidden the truth. But what neither of them realized was that fate was not finished weaving their story. The distance between them was only the beginning of a choice both would have to face, whether to let pride keep them apart, or to take the risk of love with nothing but honesty left to offer. Winter sunlight slanted through the windows of a small community gallery on the corner of Main Street. Emma walked past it every day on her way to work, usually too hurried to glance inside. But this morning, something caught her eye. A poster taped to the glass read, "The Art of Emma Brooks Opening Exhibition." She froze. Her heart stumbled in her chest as she read the words again, certain she must be imagining them. Emma Brooks. Her name. With trembling hands, she pushed open the door. The faint scent of fresh paint and polished wood filled the space. Her breath caught as her gaze swept the walls. Every sketch she had ever shared, every drawing she had tucked away in her sketchbook, now hung in frames beneath soft lights. Her diner, her daughter asleep on the couch, the skyline she drew from her window, all of them displayed as though they were priceless. In the center of the gallery, Liam sat waiting, his wheelchair still, his eyes steady but vulnerable. He looked nothing like the powerful man on magazine covers. He looked like the same quiet stranger who had once asked if she wanted to dance without dancing. Emma's throat tightened. "You did this?" she whispered. Liam nodded. "I wanted you to see what I see. Your art, your dreams, your strength. You think the world does not notice you, Emma, but I do, and I wanted everyone else to notice too." Tears welled in her eyes, the humiliation she had carried for weeks colliding with the overwhelming gesture before her. "Why? After everything?" "Because I was wrong," Liam said simply. "I thought hiding the truth would give me a chance to be seen for who I am. But instead, I hurt you. I cannot change the past. All I can do is show you, in the only way I know, that I believe in you." Emma's chest ached as she turned slowly, her eyes tracing the framed sketches glowing under the lights. Her life, her struggle, her hope honored here, not mocked, not dismissed. When she looked back at Liam, his gaze was unflinching. "I am asking for a chance, Emma. Not as Liam Parker, the billionaire. Just as Liam, the man who wants to be worthy of you." The gallery was silent, except for the faint hum of the heating system. Emma's tears slipped free, but this time they carried not only hurt, but a fragile thread of hope. She did not answer right away, but she did not turn away either. And in that silence, something between them began to heal. The gallery grew quiet, as if holding its breath. Emma stood surrounded by her own dreams made real, every sketch a mirror of her life, and every frame a reminder that someone believed in her more than she had ever believed in herself. Liam watched her carefully, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Emma, I cannot promise perfection. I cannot promise there will not be challenges. But I can promise this. I will be honest with you from now on. No secrets, no masks. Only the truth, only me. Will you give me that chance?" Emma's chest rose and fell, her heart caught between fear and longing. She thought of the nights she had whispered to herself that dreams could wait. She thought of the times she had convinced herself love was something meant for others, not for a single mother struggling to survive. And then she looked at him, not at the billionaire, not at the empire, but at the man who had taken her sketches and turned them into light. Her lips trembled into a smile. "Yes, Liam, but this time no lies. If we do this, we do it together." Relief flooded his face, and his eyes shone with something stronger than wealth, stronger than power devotion. Slowly, he reached into the pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a simple velvet box. When he opened it, the ring inside was elegant but unpretentious, a single diamond catching the gallery lights. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Emma Brooks," Liam said softly. "From the moment you sat at the wrong table, my life has not been the same. It was the best mistake I ever made. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she nodded, laughter and sobs tangled together. "Yes, Liam, 1,000 times yes." Applause broke out from a small crowd gathered quietly at the gallery entrance, friends, supporters, and even Emma's daughter Lily, who rushed forward, her eyes wide with joy. Emma scooped her daughter into her arms as Liam slid the ring onto her finger. The gallery lights glowed warmer, casting a golden hue over them. For the first time, Emma felt her world was not small or invisible. It was vast, filled with promise, and shared with a man who chose her not out of obligation, but out of love. And as they stood together, surrounded by art and hope, Emma whispered through her tears, "The best mistake we ever made."